Scattered around the Danish landscape, you can find these old grave sites. People used to believe that these were graves of giants. The reality is that they were built by farmers. But that doesn't make it any less impressive. In Danish, these grave sites are called a Jættestue. And Jætte is basically an old Nordic word, or at least Danish word, for giant. And stue just basically mean living space, living room, living space. So these were the room for giants. These gravesites are located all over Denmark. There used to be around 40,000 of them in Denmark. Today there's only around 500 left. This particular one is called Hulbjerg Jættestue. It's located in the southern part of Denmark on an island called Langeland. And this place is particularly interesting because in this gravesite they found the remains of around 40 to 50 people. And two of the skulls that they found were especially interesting because one of them had the signs of the first dental work, I believe, in the world. You can see that they have drilled a hole in one of the teeth of the person, the guy. Most likely because of some pain that he had in his teeth. But the impressive thing is that they used a flint drill to do it. It's pretty impressive. And I would say you would have to be in a lot of pain to be the first person in the world to do that sort of stuff. Another skull that they found had the remains of brain surgery, believe it or not. They had removed a chunk, a little piece of the skull of a person, probably because they've suffered some sort of head trauma and had to relieve the pressure. But yeah, that happened 5,000 years ago. The cool thing about it is that you can actually see on the skull that the person survived it. You can see that the skull had healed after the surgery, which made it even more impressive, if you ask me. These giant graves were built all over Denmark and even all over Europe at some point, or most of Europe at least. They were all built in a period of around 200 years or so, in the peasant stone age, also known as the funnel-beaker culture. They were of course used as grave sites, but they were apparently also used as land markers to show who owned the land. They were built close to settlements, close to farms. 5,000 years ago, this mound would have been covered by burned flint. And if you burn flint at a certain temperature, it turns completely white. almost reflective. So 5,000 years ago, this would have been a beacon in the sun, visible for many, many kilometers around. One of the reasons why people think that this was more than just a burial ground for people is the energy and time that they spent in building them, and also the way that they built them. The entrance to the grave, as you can see here, when at the time that they built it, they lined it up to where the next full moon was going to rise. And not only that, where the next full moon was going to rise, but just before the next lunar eclipse. So they somehow knew where the moon was going to rise. It's not that hard to figure out, and when it's going to be full moon as well, but they also apparently knew when the next lunar eclipse were happening. So that leads people to believe that their religion were based around the moon at that time. The way that these were built is that they placed a bunch of very, very big stones in the middle, and I'll show that in a second. And then they filled all the surrounding space around them with burnt flint. And it's believed it's to kind of insulate and keep the place dry. And again, the top would have been completely covered in flint as well, making it very, very visible from a great distance. And then all around, a circle of big rocks, and the gaps are filled out with smaller, flatter rocks, or sandstone, I actually believe it is. But there's at least sandstone on the inside. So this is inside the grave. So in here, people used to be buried, and there's only a few people at a time, and then it was used in generations after that. This whole floor in here used to be covered with burned flint, so the whole ground would be completely white. People were buried in here with some of their belongings, sometimes food. They found axes, bows, arrows, even some jewelry and essential tools like clay pots and stuff like that as well. Well, it's an old tradition, I would say, that you bury people with something so they don't leave this world empty-handed. I don't know if there's any sort of spiritual reason why, or just out of respect, or what the deal was. I don't know if it's possible to get the sensation of how quiet it is in here. It's completely quiet, no sounds. You just hear the faintest rumble from outside, but that's about it. When they built this 5,000 years ago, they somehow placed these giant rocks with great precision all around the chamber. And then they placed the rocks on top of birch bark. And the reason why they did that is to sort of cushion when they placed the bigger rocks on top. And some of these rocks are huge. Some of them supposedly weigh around 20 to 30 tons. And how they were able to move that sort of weight back then, I have no idea, but they were. So, and in between the big rocks, there's a layer of sandstone, drywall actually. In between each layer of sandstone there is birch bark, yet again, also again to kind of cushion the bigger rocks on top, but also to insulate the room, to keep the humidity and temperature at a preferable level. I don't know what temperature is optimal when you're storing dead people. And just to give you an example of how big it is. Whoop. See, the camera is one end and I'm at the other end. It's not big enough to stand, but you don't really need that much headroom if you're dead anyway. So, because these were used for several generations, they didn't just close it off with a big rock at the end here. They made an entrance so that they could reuse the burial site whenever necessary. So I would assume it's almost like having a private little graveyard in your backyard. I want to make something clear that I'm by no means an expert. I'm just a curious dude with access to Wikipedia. So take everything I say with a few grains of salt. I hope you enjoyed it, at least. If you did, please let me know. And if you have any questions, I would love to answer them if I can. Maybe someone else can answer if I can't. So don't be afraid to ask, and yeah, leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more of this sort of content. I'm considering traveling the entire country from top to bottom, or the other way around, and look at all these sort of old, forgotten places. There is a lot of them, and yeah, it'd be nice to explore. So yeah, if you want to come on with me to the next adventure, then let me know. All right. Again, I hope you enjoy, and see you next time.